Hello, are you there? That is me. Oh, bless me on a Monday. Welcome to my Monday morning meeting with myself. I've got a cold. I'm definitely not getting a cold. I'm in Melbourne, and I'm just looking at my week ahead. Now, I had to have kind of half of my Monday morning meeting yesterday. So sometimes I have a part meeting when I'm packing. You see, packing requires a meeting, doesn't it? So I was packing to come to Melbourne. It's quite chilly in New Zealand at the moment, and it's warm in Melbourne. So I had to try and work out the temperature that was going on, and it's quite warm compared to New Zealand here. So that's exciting. So I am in Melbourne for a few days of busyness, and business, both. And while I was packing, I was looking at my week and thinking, right, where am I going to be? What is the temperature? They're my first two questions when I'm packing. And then my next question is, how do I want to feel? And that usually comes from a question about how do I want to be? How do I want to be? And I think it's a really good question because we focus so much on what we're doing, don't we? You know, like, what are you doing today? Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? Imagine if someone said to you, what are you being today? What is your being today? In fact, I reckon that might be fun. I think if you meet someone today, you should say to them, how are you being today? What is your being? What is your state of being? Because I think being is so important, is it not? Being so important. And I'm actually speaking to a group of leaders today about the importance of being over doing. And one of the things I think leaders lose sight of, interestingly enough, when you're a good person at work, when you're bloody good at work, you do a lot of stuff, don't you? And then you get rewarded for doing a lot of stuff and you end up a leader. But what got you there won't make you any good. So I'm talking to these people today about how they have to get really focused on who they're being rather than what they're doing, because who they're being is what's important. And I think for most of us, if we shifted our perspective from what we're doing into how we're being and who we're being, don't you reckon it'd be better? So today, I needed to be comfortable. I wanted to feel polished and in charge because, I'm being paid to be running a day. So I've got to look like I know what I'm doing, don't I? So you got to look like you know what you're doing. I need to feel like I know what I'm doing. And so for me, I have certain clothes that I wear that I feel like I know what I'm doing. Right. And there's clothes I wear when I feel like I'm kind of just chilling out. So I have a lot of my being decisions hinged around my attire, how I want to be. So when I flew over yesterday, I wanted to be relaxed on the plane. I wanted to be comfortable. So what I wore was very relaxed and very comfortable because that was the whole being of who I was being, right? And then I've got a day of 2 leadership days. So I need to kind of look bloody lively, Lisa. Gosh, that's what we're doing. And then I'm catching up with some friends and I've got a day of meetings. Now, meetings is a fun thing, isn't it? Because they're all people I'm meeting for the first time. Now, you only get one chance to make a first impression, don't you? First chance, first impression. How do I want to be with these people? So I was packing yesterday and I had to make all these decisions about how I was going to be this week. I think that's quite an interesting one. That and remembering my passport. I often forget my passport. It's a ongoing joke in our family. I don't really know why I need a passport. I travel a lot. I feel like they should just know who I am. I don't really care for all the bullshit of fucking passports and rules and crap. It's very boring, isn't it? But anyway, I did bring my passport. But thinking about my week, the biggest thing was my being. How am I being? And I think I might change my planner next year so that it says in the front here a little line, not only for what are you doing and what are your focuses, but how are you being? So how are you being this week? And who are you being with? Because I think there's a massive difference between when you're being intentional and as compared to being incidental, like being intentional. So I'm going to a meeting, so I'm intentionally being with that person for a set period of time, and I know that I'm being that, and I know that I'm going there, and so I turn up in that space. And then other times, you are just walking down the street and you bump into someone and there's that kind of incidental meeting where you didn't mean to be with them, you didn't mean to meet them, and yet here you are. Here you are. So who you are being with is a big part of the focus piece for me as well, because I think being deliberate and intentional about who we're being, what are we being, and who are we being with, I think is quite good. What's that about? Who are you going to be with this week, and how do you want to be with them? Because I think there's so much in that. Imagine if you wrote down every single person you were meeting this week, what you were going to be meeting them about, and then how did you want to be? Do you want to be calm? Do you want to be powerful? Do you want to be bossy? Years ago when I was styling, I used to be a stylist and I used to style people, and I styled men and women, and they were usually had a purpose. So they were going to a wedding, like they were the mother of the bride, or they were going to a job interview. Or one time a guy said, I said, right, what's going on? He said, oh, I just want a girlfriend. I said, okay. He said, I just want to look like someone who someone would date. I'm like, well, that's not too hard. So, we took him shopping. It was really fun. Now, another time I had this very stroppy woman, and she was stroppy, and I said, what do you want? She was like, oh, I just want a top. I just want a top. And she was sort of whinging about how she just couldn't find the right top. And I showed her fucking hundreds of tops, and none of the tops suited her. And I was getting a bit annoyed. And then I turned and I said to her, how do you want to feel? Where are you wearing this top? Like, what is the thing that you're going to, and how do you want to feel when you're wearing this top? And she said, oh, well, it's for a board meeting and I'm the only woman on the board. And I said, and she said, and I'm sick and tired of them treating me like I'm the secretary. I said, oh, you want a don't fuck with me top? And she looked at me and she said, oh, that's exactly what I want. Right? And I found this beautiful top that was in this really bright magenta red. And I said, why don't you put this on? And she put it on and went, oh my God, this is it. Because it felt powerful. And that was what she was looking for. Now, all of us are chasing feelings, right? So how we're being and how we want to be, our intention to be, I think is really important. So think about your week this week, and think about who you're hanging out with, what you're doing, and how do you want to be? Like in every situation, I think, am I a driver or a passenger? Do I want to drive this meeting, this conversation, this session, this keynote, this conference? Or am I sitting in the back seat? Am I a passenger? Am I just going to go with the flow, not be a bother? Don't be a bother, Lisa. No, just go with the flow. Am I that? Or am I driving? And that comes down to what I'm being. And I think knowing the energy of what you're being is just as important, possibly if not more important, than what you're doing. So there you go. I am being in Melbourne. I am being fantastic because I've got fantastic clients that I'm working with, and I'm very grateful to be doing that. I've got some fantastic friends I'm catching up with. So I'm pretty bloody excited, actually, about my week of being. And I had a whole day on a plane yesterday. Well, not a whole day, but it felt like it. And I do love a plane. Hey, I love a plane. And I've got another whole day on Thursday on the plane. And I love the plane because I'm contained. And so being contained is a really good idea. I like to be contained. I don't want to be restricted, but I want to be contained. So when I'm stuck in my little seat with just one pen and one notebook and one laptop and one glass of water, there's only so much trouble I can get into, isn't there? The worst thing in New Zealand did was give me Wi-Fi. I'm like, don't give me Wi-Fi. Then I can go shopping. I don't want to go shopping on the plane. I want to be focused. It's a very good place for me to write and plan and imagine and create because I'm very focused. Isn't that lovely? So I'm going to be focused. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be glorious in Melbourne this week. I'm excited. I want you to think about how you want to be. What's happening in your being? How are you being? Not necessarily what you're doing, but how are you being? Think about that this week. I think that could be our big intention. Have a wonderful week. Bye.